Hey, so we're going to do something a little bit different today. I've actually got a question that came in. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to talk about kind of my response, and we're going to chat about best practices based on my years of experience in real estate. And if this situation that this buyer is going through is not relevant to you, it actually may be relevant to somebody you know. So make sure that you like and share this post, because you never know, it could really impact and help somebody that's on your social media that you're friends with. Okay, so this question comes from Christian, and he says, "Good evening. Myself and another service member are planning to get a joint VA loan for a 4-unit property. I currently used a VA loan for my now house, and I've lived in it for over a year in San Diego. I guess the other person is also renting a place in San Diego. And what are the precautions and steps that I should take beforehand, or anything to look into?" So just to summarize, it looks like Christian and his friend are going to be buying a 4-unit property. Christian's got a VA loan out on his current home, but they're going to go in halvesies on a 4-plex, maybe somewhere else out in California. So what are the best practices on that? Now, the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to talk to a lender that has done a lot of VA loans. Because if you deal with a lender that's very unfamiliar with VA, you're going to not be maximizing the benefits that you have as a VA eligible borrower in most cases. One of the biggest things that I learned very, very, very recently is that you can actually have more than one VA loan. And this is where it's important for you to talk to your VA your lender that's going to know VA loans, and make sure that you know exactly how much you can borrow. Sometimes you have more eligibility to borrow more money on your VA loan than just the one house. So there's a certificate of eligibility that you're given. Usually, I think it's the VA that gives it to you, and that is supposed to help you understand how much money you can borrow. And so between you and the VA and your lender, you'll be able to figure out whether that amount of money can cover just the one house that you own, or if you're going to be able to use it toward buying that 4-plex also. So number one, check with that. So also, best practices. These are situations that I've been in with people that have been buying with VA loans before. So if you buy a property, first of all, if you buy a property with 4 units, it's very difficult, at least in the Kansas City market, to get the property to cash flow if you don't put any money down. When you have a VA loan, you're not paying PMI, so you're getting a break essentially. If you had an FHA loan, you would be paying PMI. If you had a conventional loan and you were just putting 5% down or 10% down, you'd be paying private mortgage insurance. But with VA, you are given a break. You don't have to pay that. But still, it's helpful to put a big, in this market, 20% down, 25% down, sometimes more down payment to get the property to cash flow, so that you've got those 4 units income able to offset the expenses that you incur on a monthly basis. So that's number one. So you might consider putting a down payment down, even though you may be VA eligible. The other thing is, when you take a VA loan, you're going to have a VA appraiser that's going to be a little bit more of a stickler than if you took a conventional loan. So that VA appraiser is going to have different requirements on the condition of the home. They are going to want the home to be very habitable and very safe for you. And they turn a blind eye a little bit more when you have a conventional loan. But there are certain things that the VA is looking for, and so chipped and peeling paint could be one of them. Missing a handrail somewhere where you might need to have a handrail, broken window, anything that kind of stands out as that's going to be an issue of habitability, just know that the VA is probably going to call that out. And because you're buying a 4-unit property, and it's probably an investment property for the person who owns it currently, and because those 4-unit properties tend to get ran down over time, you just might have a little bit harder time getting the appraiser to sign off on your VA appraisal without some negotiations from the seller. So you might have to go back to the seller and negotiate some repairs just in order to get the VA appraiser to give it the sign off. Now, let's take, for example, the scenario where you can't use your second VA loan. Like, let's say you have to get rid of your first VA loan, and you have to get your second VA loan going after you get your first one out of your hands, out of your name. There's a couple ways to do this, and so again, the scenario where you have one VA loan and you have to get rid of it in order to buy your fourplex. What you could do is a couple things. Obviously, number one, you could sell the property that you're in. When you sell, your VA loan is paid off, and then you could go buy the fourplex with your friend and use the VA loan there. Key is you have to move into that property. By the way, you have to move into that fourplex as part of your VA requirement. But you could sell, and that would free you up. Another thing you could do is you could refinance the house that you're in right now, refinance it from a VA loan to a conventional loan. And then that, of course, could free up your ability to use a new VA loan because you only have one. You're going to be using it on your fourplex. And then the third option is that you could let somebody assume that loan. So rather than you just selling it, you could actually sell it to somebody who's going to take over your loan. And if this is a really popular option if you have a very low interest rate, like right now, let's say interest rates are at 6.5%. There are some people that I know that have an interest rate of 2.5%, 3.5%. And there's a way, and this is where you would want to link up with your real estate agent or your lender that knows about VA loans. But there's a way to allow somebody to come in and buy your home and take over your loan, and you can actually charge them for that. And if you have a good real estate agent who can help you put that together, you can actually make a little bit more money on your home than just whatever the market value of the home is, because you can charge not only for the house, but you can charge for your low interest loan that the buyer is going to get access to. If you have any additional questions on that, just drop me a comment and I'd be happy to continue discussing that. So I want to just see if there's anything else I've got here. Assume, out loan, sale of property, whatever you need from VA. The last thing I would say is that when you're dealing with a VA loan, you want to make sure you get all your paperwork and all the things that you need to complete your VA loan. Try to get those all before you start shopping. Get them all from the VA. Get with your lender, get pre-approved, make sure that the lender and you have everything that they need from the VA before you ever start writing an offer. Because if you get in a situation where you're under contract and you have to close in 30 days on that fourplex, and you're waiting on a document from the VA, it can be very brutal because it's a government agency and they're just they work at their own pace. So best you have all your, ducks in a row before you get out there and start throwing offers around in the market. One final thing, and this is something that I've actually done with clients in the past, is when you're writing an offer, it's going to say on the offer what your financing type is. So if you're writing an offer on a fourplex and you're like, hey, I'm going to get a VA loan, some sellers actually, this is terrible, but some sellers will actually discriminate against you. I don't know why they do it, but I'm just telling you that this happens. I don't agree with it. I don't do it, but I've seen it happen before where people will say, I don't want to sell to a person with a VA loan. And I think that a lot of that is a misconception because the people think, oh, I'm going to sell it to a buyer who's got a VA loan. It's going to be a hassle. It's going to require a lot of repairs. I don't want to deal with a lot of repairs. So I'm not going to sell it to that VA buyer. I'm going to sell it to somebody who's got a different loan type. And so some of that's just miseducation on the part of, the real estate agent that's representing the seller. But hey, you can't get out here and educate the world. I'm trying to show you how to protect yourself. So what you could do, and what I've done with clients in the past, if we ever run into a situation where we think we're going to be discriminated against, is to have not only a VA pre-approval letter, but to also have a conventional pre-approval letter. So have your lender give you two different ones, and make sure that you are familiar with what the payments are going to look like if you had to buy that fourplex with a conventional loan, and then make sure and what the finances are going to look like with a conventional loan, and then also look at it from a VA loan. So the down payments, the monthly payments, the closing costs are all going to be different, depending on which loan you go with. And you will want to write, potentially, if you go this route, you could write the contract such that it would allow you to change loan programs after you get your offer accepted. Okay? Is that shady? I don't think so. As long as you're abiding by the terms of the contract that you put together or that your real estate agent put together, shouldn't be an issue. But the whole reason why that tactic exists is because veterans get discriminated against when they're making offers on housing, and so we as real estate agents have to try to overcome these things in the most moral way we can. So hopefully that works out. Best of luck to you on your fourplex acquisition, and certainly if you or anybody else out there is watching this and you have best practice tips for this VA owner and buyer, let them know in the comments below. Edward Stevens with the Stevens Group at ReeceNichols. Look forward to seeing you one day at the closing table.